Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today. If this is your first time here, hello, my name is Christina. I do different styles of work, readings, somatic work, but truly these videos that I offer, and if you're here at my page for the first time, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe because I offer a lot of different teachings and readings, energetic forecasts to help you on the awakening path. We are going to dig into a new piece today, my friends. This is something that I have never done before, but I got the nudge that it would be a cool idea. And if it goes well, so you can let me know, you can always leave a comment or you can message me to let me know if this really resonates for you, if it helps you. I'm going to be exploring a few different themes that have been showing up collectively, but in client sessions and readings. So obviously, I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm going to talk about the bigger theme that is showing up, that I'm seeing showing up for many people. And one, why it's so important to understand, and two, how to work with it in your life when it's showing up for you. And I really feel like, if this does work, it could become some sort of series where I speak to these different themes, because there are certain themes that we move through that are important to understand on this awakening path. So, the three themes that I'm going to be speaking to today, one is integration. Why is integration important? The power of integration when we know how to do it. We hear about integration a lot. What does it even mean? Two, self-sabotage. We also hear this piece a lot, perhaps in the spiritual healing community space. Self-sabotage, I like to think of it in a different way, and I'm going to explain to you how I view self-sabotage. And three, if you are stuck, here is why. And so, with each of these themes, I'm going to provide you with my understanding and explanation of what is occurring, of what it is, and two, how to support yourself when that piece is showing up, or how to practice it in your day to day. So, let's start with integration. This is to me a bit of a buzzword in the healing space. It's a word that we have been using more, but there is some vague understanding of what it is, or what does that look like to even embody it in your life. When I think of integration, to me it is about creating space in order for certain things to settle in. And I really see integration occurring as one, after you have gone through a really big experience. That's one way it can show up, is after you've gone through a really big experience, and it's important for you to create space for the deeper insights or understandings of that piece to settle in. This space is so important, right? And I think sometimes we forget, because we might get on this journey and we're learning all the things and we're growing and we're expanding, and but integration is really such a key piece, because and it's not something that comes naturally. On my path, what I have learned is you really have to create the space to allow the integration to occur. You have to carve out the space, ideally day to day, so that you are practicing reflection of what is showing up for you, so that you are allowing your nervous system to regulate into this new peace, into this new clarity, into this new insight. The space that you carve out and that you create for yourself makes a big difference in how consistently, how easily, how efficiently you continue to expand into that next piece. I always say that integration is equally as important as the big piece you receive, or as the big insight. This is another reason why with clients, I say, wait a certain amount of time until we book. Or like when I'm doing readings, I usually often recommend, don't book sooner than a month, because we need time and space for the new pieces to land, for the new pieces to settle into your system, for you to practice awareness. Because here's the other piece with integration. There's this piece around changing patterns. Well, you can't actually change a pattern if you're not making a new decision. And you often can't make a new decision if you aren't practicing awareness. And you're not practicing awareness if you're not creating space. So this is where the integration occurs, right? When you create that space, you're able to see more of what is showing up. You're then able to have greater space and bandwidth to choose a new response, to choose a new decision. And that's where the long-term shift and change occurs. And I want to speak to this piece of, if you do journeys, if you partake in plant medicine journeys, if you microdose, if you go to a lot of retreats, like any type of bigger system shift that you go through, big, especially plant medicine journeys can be massive. Even microdosing, or going to a new place, going on a massive trip. I went to Mount Shasta back in the summer. I am still integrating pieces from that trip. So the bigger the thing is that we go into, or that we experience, the greater space you are going to want to create for integration. The bigger expansion you go through, the more space you're going to want to create to settle into that new insight, new clarity, new realization. And the other reason why this is so important is because when we do have these big shifts, when we do have these big moments of, like all of a sudden we're seeing something so differently. All of a sudden we're experiencing life in a different way, or the top's been blown off and all of a sudden you're seeing things in such a bigger way. The space that you create for the integration is so important, because anything new, especially outside of the comfort zone of what you've always known and who you've always been, is going to be jarring for your nervous system. It's going to be unfamiliar. And so the space that you create also allows you to be able to see parts that might be showing up that are in resistance to that new expansion, parts of you that are showing up that are not comfortable, that don't feel safe in that new piece yet. And so the space that you create allows for the integrating of these new pieces to settle in. It allows for you to calm and regulate your nervous system, and it allows you time and space to work with the parts, the other parts of you that show up that don't feel safe in that change, that don't feel safe in that shift, because that is undoubtedly going to show up. Any type of big shift, you are going to have the parts of you that show up that are comfortable in who you've always been. You're going to have the parts of you that show up that are resistant to the change. And so this space that you create is so, so important. So, if I can give one piece of advice, it's, if you're expecting or desiring expansion, make sure that you are carving out time and space for integrating of those pieces. It's going to make the journey, it's going to make the experience feel a lot less overwhelming and intense, and less like up and down like this. It's going to allow it to be more of a smoother, expansive experience. Okay, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and it is this piece around self-sabotage. Do you self-sabotage? Do you feel like you have a hard time with, when you are self-sabotaging, knowing what to do for yourself in that experience? I first like to start with, I am not a huge fan of the term self-sabotage. I think it carries an energy of judgment, of shame. I think it's a highly misunderstood experience, and something that really helped me understand self-sabotage better is in the parts work that I did first on my own journey, and also in the parts work that I do with clients in sessions. Because, one of the core pieces of parts work is understanding that you have so many different parts of you that formed when you were younger, when you went through hard pieces, when your ego was forming. These are like little personality traits or little identities that you have that also are connected to like protective mechanisms that keep you safe. These formed when you were really young. And often if you're stuck in anything, it will be something that's playing out. But we'll get to that. Self-sabotage is no different. And something that has been so healing for me that I really practice with clients is beginning to see and understand your self sabotage as a part of you that is showing up that is actually trying to protect you. You could think of it as a self protector. Okay. Because whatever that piece is that you're wanting to get done, or that you're wanting to complete, or that you're wanting to step into, or that you're wanting to expand into, the self-sabotage that's showing up is actually the part of you protecting you from maybe fear of that piece. Maybe that piece doesn't feel safe. Maybe it's something you've never done before, and so it feels unfamiliar. There's uncertainty there, or the other piece here too is like maybe it's just something that you don't want to do. And yes, we want to create boundaries for ourselves sometimes and practice some discipline, but it might also just not be in soul alignment for you. And so I always say get very curious with self sabotage when it shows up. Self sabotage, get curious with procrastination when it is showing up. First and foremost, also check in with your nervous system. Are you regulated? I find that when I'm really putting something off, and maybe it isn't a protector that's showing up, but maybe I'm just putting it off because I just feel so overwhelmed with things that are showing up in my life. And so actually it's the nervous system regulation that needs to occur first. And then when I get to this place of baseline, whew, the smoke is, I've got my incense going. And then when I get to this place of baseline within myself, then I can actually do the thing that I want to do and follow through with the thing that I want to complete or the task that I want to accomplish. But it's so important to get curious with, why might I be resisting this piece? The curiosity is so important in terms of creating safety in our systems. There's a reason you're not doing that thing, okay? And could be because you're overwhelmed. It could be because you have no time. I would get curious with, if you have no time, how much time are you making for yourself? Okay, so there could be an invitation there for boundaries. But getting curious with, is there a part of me that doesn't feel like this piece is safe? Maybe you are self sabotaging or putting off having a hard conversation. Maybe you are self sabotaging in a relationship, a new relationship that's showing up, where you're noticing like there's this part of you that shows up that's like always on alert, or is always trying to look for the things that that person is doing wrong. Okay, ding, ding, ding. Now we can see there's a part of us that doesn't feel safe in some way for good reason. Maybe you've had really hard relationships in your life. And so this part is showing up to protect you. So curiosity. So if we bring it to this piece of like, what do you do when it's showing up? One, regulate your nervous system first and foremost. Connect within yourself, like bring yourself to some form of a baseline so you can begin to, we can't actually tap into curiosity and compassion, which are two very important components in creating safety within ourselves and trust. We can't tap into those two important pieces if we are not regulated. So first and foremost, do what you need to do to be able to actually drop in. Maybe it looks like moving your body first. Maybe it looks like meditating. Maybe it looks like doing some breathing. And then you drop in. You get curious. How could this self sabotage be protecting me? If nothing comes through for you there, then you could get curious with, is this piece that I'm not doing actually just not in alignment for me? Get curious there. Or is this something that I need to create a boundary around and just actually do the thing? Like I'm just putting it off because I feel lazy. Or maybe you are just too busy and you have to create a boundary around other pieces so you can get this piece done. So always curiosity. Your self-sabotage is not there to make you fail. It's not there to hurt you. It's actually there, and a lot of the time it's there and it's showing up because it's trying to protect you. Okay. we're going to talk about the third piece here. And this really showed up a lot earlier this week in sessions with clients. It's something that I get very passionate speaking about because this has been a big piece for me on my journey. It's been something that I have grown a lot through. It's been something that's really helped me, especially when I have been very stuck. So, we're going to speak to this piece of why you will get very stuck, even though you're doing this work. Maybe you're really tapping in. You're starting to understand a lot of what you've been through in your life. You're building awareness around that. You can understand why you do the things you do based off of the things you've been through. You have a good idea of like trauma that you've been through and how that played a part. You have a good idea of your relationship with your parents and how that's played a part in who you are now. So you've built so much awareness and understanding, and yet you still feel stuck. You still can't seem to shift out of those patterns. You still can't seem to break the cycle, or the same things keep showing up and repeating, and you're spinning your wheels wondering why. Does this sound familiar? This is something that I went through a lot, especially in the early parts of my journey. It was like I started on my journey and I started understanding so much about the things I had been through and how they played a part in who I was now, and my early relationships with my parents and family and how that's played a part. And like I started to understand my patterns, and I was just like soaking it all in and understanding and building awareness. And yet these same things would still continue to show up. And I'd be like, I was literally spinning my wheels, being like, why? I have so much understanding. Why are these things still happening? And then, boom, it was about 4 years ago when I came across somatic work. And this was a game changer because what I learned how to do for the first time was actually take all of this, everything that I knew and understood in my awareness, and actually begin to drop into my body and work on a somatic level with my nervous system. And that's where I got unstuck. That's where the patterns really began to shift. That's where I really began to cycle out of these patterns. And there's a reason for this. It's because, we can know something so well. We can have a higher awareness around that piece. You can understand, maybe a piece of trauma that you went through and how that shows up as a pattern for you now and how you show up in your life. But the thing is, that piece will continue to cycle. It will continue to show up repetitively until you have completed that cycle. And the way that you complete the cycle, and actually, I'll pause here because I'll explain something. When we go through trauma, when we go through something that we can't process, that's what trauma is. It's like this experience outside of us that we can't process. It's too overwhelming for the system. And I like to think of it as you then take a snapshot of that experience and you store it away in your nervous system, in your safety system, is how I refer to it. And then this is where we have triggers, right? You will get triggered in your life later on, and it won't actually be that external thing. That's the big piece. You'll be like, well, why did I have that response? Well, it's because that old trauma is resurfacing because your system's like, wait, we know this. Wait, this is familiar. Wait, we know this energy. And so the trigger, it surfaces because the cycle wants to be complete. Like your system actually wants to dispel that energy. It wants to complete the cycle. But here's where it's important, because when we do things like talk therapy or CBT, really great for building awareness, but it will keep us in the loop, because what actually needs to occur is dropping into the body and completing the cycle through the nervous system, through nervous system regulation, through energetic clearing and releasing. And so this is why we will be able to have so much knowledge and understanding of the things we've been through, but yet they still seem to cycle. The same triggers seem to show up. You seem to take part in the same patterns, repeating them in your life. It's because often you're not actually dropping into your body and completing the cycle energetically through your system. And you do this through awareness of what's showing up, being able to drop into the body, being able to pay attention to the somatic cues that are showing up, regulating your nervous system, and then choosing a new response. Easier said than done sometimes. But this is how you complete that so it doesn't keep looping. And this is why, in my opinion, talk therapy and, CBT, things like that can only get us so far because we're staying up in the mind. And the body and the nervous system is staying looping in that pattern. And so we actually have to be able to drop into the body to complete the cycle. And so, how can you begin to practice this day to day? Well, I would say if you have a lot of awareness, next it's about learning how to practice more awareness of the somatic cues that are showing up. Practicing more awareness of what's showing up in my body when this trigger shows up. How do I bring myself to a baseline first so the trigger shows up, then bring myself to a baseline and then create a new decision? Choose a new response, because we can't actually choose a new response when we are dysregulated. We don't have access to choice. And I've spoken about this before in other videos. We don't have access to choice when we are dysregulated. And so regulation of the system is so important because when we're regulated, we have access to new potentials, to new options, to new choices. Ah, my friends, this feels like an exciting new style of video that I could offer. So please, again, if you found this helpful, please comment so that I know, so that this is something that I can keep providing for you, or message me personally. And, this piece really helped me, or this piece really stood out. And in saying that, if you're looking for more support on your path, this is beautiful work that we do. Number one, in my deep dive soul coaching. It's also beautiful work we can explore in a one-to-one Akashic Records soul reading, because within a reading, you are able to receive more clarity and understanding around soul patterns that might be showing up, why you might be stuck in them, what you need to see on a deeper level, and how you can create that change now on a soul level. So lots of options. I thank you for being here. I thank you for listening. I really hope that this can help you on the path. And again, if it helps, please let me know.